Hello everyone, happy Tuesday and welcome back to 360 Sports, where today we're going to be talking about college football. I'm Dylan Sechrist here with
Chase Brosend,
Izzy, Mackey,
and Gwen Evans.
And guys, we got a lot of headlines to get to today, starting off with last week. 5 AP top 25 teams lost to unranked opponents, and number 6 lost to Kansas. Big wins by Colorado and Arizona State. After those, now the Big 12 is completely up for grabs. Guys, who do you think will win the Big 12?
I still think this is BYU's conference or division to lose. I know they had that loss to Kansas, but they can get over it. They go against Arizona State this week at 3. That's going to be a big game. It's going to have a lot of playoff implications on the line. And I think the winner of that game is going to come out on top of the Big 12. However, these two teams have been inconsistent lately. One team that hasn't been inconsistent is Colorado. They've won their last 4 games, and right now I see it as a 3-way race to the winner of the Big 12. Colorado's offense is clicking, but ultimately I have BYU coming out on top.
Yeah, I have to agree with Colorado, though. They did have a rocky start at the beginning of their season. They had 2 bad losses. Nebraska wasn't bad, but the first loss they had was not the best. But right now they're looking really good. They have they have very top offensive players with Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, who we all know is a Heisman candidate. So I feel like they're very high at the top of the list. I think they can win the rest of their games, and especially after that win they just had over Utah, which did BYU beat them? BYU beat them, right? Or did they not play them?
BYU.
Yes,
BYU.
that's
Okay.
the holy war.
Right, okay. But I do think BYU does have the best record in that conference. So again, it is BYU this weekend when BYU plays Arizona State.
Yeah.
Arizona State, that's a game they have to win, and I do think if they win that, I think they have a good chance to win the Big 12. But again, Colorado is looking very good right now.
Yeah, I agree. I think Colorado is kind of the front runner at this point after BYU lost. BYU's looked really, really shaky recently, and they finally got a loss, which I was expecting. They didn't.
It was coming towards them at some
Yeah,
point.
they got too many last second wins for it to be sustainable, and I think Colorado could be one of the teams that is able to take down BYU in a Big 12 championship game.
Yeah, Chase, I originally would have agreed with you. I had it as BYU versus who, but now I'm going Colorado versus who. Mm-hmm. Arizona State, winners of their last 3. They just beat number 16 Kansas State last week. I agree with you. I think that game is pivotal, but I think we also can't count out Iowa State. They're still in the running. They still have number 16 Kansas State left on their schedule. It's the final week of the season, though. Maybe the Big 12 will be decided by then. I'm not sure, but we'll definitely see what happens with that. Like the Big 12, though, the SEC is also wide open. Georgia's win over Tennessee has led to 5 SEC teams now having a chance to make the playoff. Mm-hmm. So do you guys think the SEC will have all 5 teams in the playoff, or do you think there's 1 or 2 that'll miss?
I do not think they're going to have all 5 teams in with the 12-team playoff. It is hard to have that many teams in it. Obviously, we're going to see more teams, and for the longest time, we've seen the SEC dominate the college football playoff with Alabama and LSU and Georgia more recently. But this year, there isn't even a single team in the SEC that are undefeated. Every team has at least 1 win. With that being said, I think Texas, Tennessee, and Ole Miss have basically punched their ticket into the playoffs. They don't really have any competition coming up. They have 2 easy games. But on the other hand, Alabama still has to play Auburn in the Iron Bowl. We all know that no matter what the team's records are, that game's always going to be a go one. It's going to be a heads or tails game. You don't know which way it's going to go. So that game's always interesting. And also, if Alabama wins out, then Georgia's not going to get in. Georgia already has 2 losses. You could argue that Georgia has a stronger schedule, but the way it's shaken up right now, I don't think Georgia's going to get in.
Yeah, I agree. I think when I look at the SEC right now, I'm confused, I'm lost. Bama lost to Vandy, Ole Miss lost to Kentucky, Tennessee lost to Arkansas. None of these are particularly good teams. And then I see that and I think, oh, Georgia must be the best of the lot. They lost bad to Ole Miss. So I truly, I don't know what's happening in the SEC right now.
There's your number 1.
Fun little circle of parity going on in the SEC right now. It's great.
And then also Texas and Texas A&M play this weekend, which shouldn't be a good game, but I don't know. You never know. It could end up shaking things up a little.
And if Texas A&M does win, what does that say for their resume? If they want to make a case to get in. Because I think they're number 15 right now.
Yeah, they're just on the bubble.
They could make a case to get in if they beat Texas.
Yeah, 15 in the
They only have 1 loss
in
in the SEC too. Mm-hmm. So
I feel like right now Texas is the only team out of those 5 who don't have 2 losses. The rest of them all have 2 losses. So even if Texas loses this game to Texas A&M, I feel like Texas has cemented their way into this college football playoff. And I think for the rest of them, it's up in the air. Because if you look at it, they've all kind of like, Georgia did lose to Ole Miss, and then Ole Miss lost to Kentucky. It's just like a whole mess. Like, you don't. Didn't Ole Miss lose to South Carolina too? Or am I going crazy? No. Sorry.
That was
Bama on the ropes, I believe.
I don't remember.
They had Bama on the ropes too.
South Carolina's a good team. Their
South Carolina.
record might not show it, but if 2 of those games go their way, if the LSU game goes their way, the Alabama one does, they could be making a case. So it's wild in the SEC.
I think Alabama, though, I think they're in. I don't see them losing to Auburn, though. I know that's like a big game, but I don't see them losing to Auburn. I feel like they know that they have to prove something, and I don't think they're going to let Auburn beat them. I don't see that happening. But Georgia, again, that's like a powerhouse and always in the college football playoff. And I feel like after getting out last year, they want to be back in. So I do think and one of the big things is for this SEC thing, it relies on the Big Ten, because if Ohio State beats Indiana very convincingly, which I don't know if that's going to happen, like beating them by 50, how far will Indiana drop? Like, could that could affect that if Indiana loses, or if Ohio State loses, that could affect it. So.
Absolutely.
But right now, it could look. There is a chance where there could be 4 Big Ten teams and 5 SEC teams into the college football playoff, which is fun.
It's crazy.
It shows the dominance
You
that we
bring
have.
up a good point talking about Ohio State and the Big Ten, especially with how much they matter. A big topic of this week everywhere has been SEC bias. I'm personally a believer in it. Paul Feinbaum went on ESPN earlier this week and was discussing how Georgia shouldn't have fallen as far into the ranking as they did after their loss to Ole Miss because of quality of loss. And don't get me wrong, I think I like quality of loss to think about it, but it shouldn't be the sole determiner in somebody getting in over, say, I don't know, 9-1 SMU who has a chance to win the ACC, or there's even a chance that if SMU or Miami win the ACC and a lower ranked Big 12 champion wins, they don't make the playoff.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a shame, but that's because of the SEC bias. So I think you're right. The key to it is Ohio State going out and and Oregon and all these teams, trying to not shoot themselves in the foot proverbially, because if you do, then all 5 of those teams will most likely make the playoff. I want to believe that not all of them will, but it feels like at least 3 or 4
I feel like
will.
the SEC bias, it guarantees them all in. I feel like it's
Yeah.
a lot, and it also kind of has to do with money. That SEC, it's so huge down there. Like, they need it in, especially after last year with Georgia not making it in. Like, you just saw how mad they all got, and they said it wasn't, like, variable. And even when you, like, look at people who make arguments against Indiana University or even Penn State, they're like, it's not a strength of schedule, but I don't ever see people saying that against.
No, the same.
Which it is true, they do have a harder schedule, but I feel like it's a lot harder on Big Ten than it
The
is on
same
SEC.
people last week that were saying Indiana's a great story are the same people now. They're like, just get it over with, let an SEC team bid up on them, and then we'll have the same teams in the playoff we have every year. It's like people don't want fun in college football. But moving on, speaking of the rankings, let's take a look at the newest playoff picture. Here's the bracket. With a lot of teams moving around, what do you guys think about their current rankings and the way the bracket shakes out, and would you change anything?
Well, right now, I do see this. I think it's going to look pretty much what it's going to look like come December. I do think Miami, they're going to drop a little after their loss. I'm not sure who's going to come out in the ACC. It's going to be between Miami and Clemson probably, so they actually might stay at 4. But anyway, the only change I could see happening is Georgia swapping places with Alabama if Auburn wins the Iron Bowl. And also, if if Indiana somehow pulls up an upset in Ohio State, I think Indiana's going to jump, Ohio State's going to go down. I don't think that Ohio State will drop out of the playoffs because 2 of their losses will be the top 4 teams then. But, and the question that I have is, do you guys think Indiana will drop out of the top 12 if they lose to Ohio State?
I don't want them to. I really like what Cignetti has done, and I love Indiana football this year. They've managed to win games that they shouldn't have. They were missing their quarterback, I think, for a game or 2, and they still managed to win games. So I love what they're doing. I really want Indiana to stay in. I think they're a fun story this year, and I'm all about fun stories. But again, that SEC bias, I think because of that, and plus they also are going to think about those Big 12 teams that they want to push in. So they'll probably knock Indiana down maybe too far.
Yeah.
But
I agree. I think Miami and BYU are kind of the 2 that are up in the air right now. I think Miami, Clemson, and this one's a little bit out there, but SMU hasn't looked terrible.
How crazy would it be?
yeah.
I was just thinking that. How crazy would it be to see number 4 Miami get knocked back and then SMU is now getting a first-round bye?
Exactly. So that's something to look out for, and then obviously BYU, Colorado, other Big 12 teams could potentially end up in that spot.
Right. I don't know. I don't like Notre Dame being in this. I don't like them being in this. They lost to NIU, which is like, I know that was early in the season, but I just don't like them being in it. Like, I don't really care. They shouldn't be in there.
Yeah.
But also BYU, that whole Big 12 spot, I don't know. I feel like none of those Big 12 teams should be getting that bye. Isn't there a way that the Boise State could get that spot instead? I was reading that.
They'd have to be higher ranked.
I'm not sure.
The way that would work would be, I think, if Boise State became higher ranked than one of the Power 4 conferences leaders, then they would have the first round.
I don't know.
bye.
I just feel like that Big 12, I know they get it, but I don't know. I don't think BYU's good. Like, I don't know. Either Ole Miss or Penn State, I feel like they could just come in and beat any of those Big 12 teams.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
But also it's Boise State, and where do they match up in the Big 12?
Right.
Exactly.
Because I think Ohio State easily beats Boise State, and then I don't know.
Yeah.
I think the one thing I'm looking at this week is because looking here, I think Ole Miss is definitely the first team out, especially now after this week. They didn't do anything to move up, move down. I don't even think they played. So, I mean, right there, that's a spot that you can give to an Alabama, put Georgia in a Bama spot. It'll just be interesting to see what the SEC does to Revolve this week. So.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right, so transitioning now. Travis Hunter, we talked about Colorado, is now currently the betting favorite to win the Heisman Trophy after Hunter had a rushing touchdown, 5 receptions for 55 yards, and an interception in their win over Utah. Ashton Jeanty and Cam Ward both also make compelling cases, but who do you guys think should be atop the Heisman conversation?
I just think it's a shame that Travis Hunter and Ashton Jeanty have to be in this playing this well in the same year, because one of them could easily win it each year. I think Cam Ward's an awesome player. He's got good talent, but I think he's out of this race. I think it's between these two. You can make a compelling case for either one of them. But even though I said I was going to give it to Ashton Jeanty a couple weeks ago, I changed my mind. I'm going to give it to Travis Hunter just because he's been playing phenomenal, not just on offense, but on defense. You mentioned he had 55 yards and an interception last week in a win against Utah. That's just crazy to me. I don't see how a player can play over 100 snaps and not be tired and still be putting up stats like this. He's going top 10 picks in the NFL. I just think Travis Hunter, he's carried this Colorado defense and offense to a much better record than last year, and I think he's the clear Heisman favorite.
Right. I mean, what other person on this list do you see playing the whole game? None of them. No. What other person is the second best offender on their offense and then the first best defender? None of them. That's why I think Travis Hunter, he makes the clear case. Yes, Ashton Jeanty, he's doing really well as well, but it sucks because it's just Travis Hunter, and then he has that whole campaign going on. He's acting like a president. He's going around. Wasn't he up here? I swear
Yes,
he
he
was.
was.
He was doing
For
campaign trials.
I have pictures of him on my phone.
You can't. I think it goes to him. And then Cam Ward, the loss to Georgia Tech.
Yeah, I can put him out.
You can't let that happen.
The sad part is it's not even his fault.
It's not
That's
his
what makes me
fault.
upset. It's he has done
But-
all that he can to will Miami into a
Yeah.
lot of these wins, but their defense is just so
Right.
brutal. There's
but
nothing
if you
can
were
really do about
if you
it.
were Heisman, you'd be able to beat Georgia Tech.
He played so
I
well
know,
in that
but-
game, though. He had 3 touchdowns.
Yeah,
This year,
48 yards.
he has 32 touchdowns and 6
It sucks the team he's
interceptions.
on. If he was on a
incredible.
powerhouse
The one
team,
thing-
if he was on Georgia
Yeah.
or Alabama, I think he would have a way better case.
Yeah, and that's the one thing
But-
that's nice now, though, is if he was on a Georgia and Alabama team with these same stats, it's still not it's otherworldly stats for a Heisman.
But they would just be winning.
Yeah, exactly. And the winning is what would do it for him. But I'm actually happy that it's probably not going to be a QB award this year.
Yeah,
which
that's
normally the Heisman
nice.
tends to
Right.
be.
I like that.
But no, yeah, I think Hunter is revolutionary. But my argument is he right now betting. He is at minus 350, so he is a massive favorite. Jeanty is second at plus 390. I think that's ridiculous considering
Yeah.
Jeanty has 189 yards per game and is carrying Boise State to the playoff. I think while Hunter should still be the favorite, and I do think he'll probably end up winning Heisman because I don't believe in the committee to actually give it to Jeanty, I think it should be a lot closer than people are expecting.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know how betting works. I don't understand what any of that was.
No.
I just heard plus and minus, but I don't know. I think the way that he's been able to transform Colorado, they weren't even bowl
Yeah.
eligible last year, and now there's
Yeah.
talks of them being in the college football playoff. That's big, and
Yeah.
like he's one of the people leading it because he's literally on offensive defense.
Yeah.
Like he's playing 99% of the snaps in every game.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
that's nobody else is doing it like him. It's his to lose, I think.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The other thing that's kind of hard with Ashton Genty, in my opinion, is he's like Boise State is playing nobodies. They're
Right.
playing
Yeah.
UNLV. They're playing Hawaii. Like,
Right.
Argument, he almost had 200 yards against Oregon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but Oregon is mostly like their main focus
They're-
on defense is
yeah.
that they're good at the pass protection.
But
so
they're also stacking 8 guys in the box to play against
This
Genty,
is
and
fair.
he is still averaging like 5 a carry in most scenarios.
I'll give you that. I'll give
So
you that.
he is doing all that he can
This is a good
to
point.
carry Boise State. But
Again.
sticking with the Heisman talk, we're going to take a break from Travis Hunter and Ashton Genty, and we're going to talk about our favorite Heisman winners of all time. Everyone pick their favorite Heisman Trophy winner of all time, and we're going to present them at the board. Izzy, lead us off.
All right. Okay. As a Philly fan myself, I had to go with Devontae Smith. He got it in 2020, and we saw him work very well in Alabama with Jalen Hurts, and now we see him work very well with very well in Alabama, yes. And now we see him work very well with Jalen Hurts in Philly. And as a Philly fan, it's my favorite thing to watch on Sundays. And I think from his size as a wide receiver, that is why he's one of my favorite picks, because he's like so tiny and he gets hit and stuff, but he gets right back up, and then the next play he's getting a touchdown. And he's catching it with one hand, and that's why I love him. His freshman year at Alabama, he had the game-winning catch against Georgia in overtime to help them win the national championship. So that's why I have him as my favorite Heisman winner so far. And also he's not a quarterback, which I love to see some diversity in the Heisman wins.
Definitely. And he had to go through so much adversity when he was at Alabama, even when he won the Heisman. All this talk about his size, he was
Right.
too skinny to play in the NFL. He proved the haters wrong in college, and he's doing it in the NFL too. I think he has a really good story.
Yeah, the only problem I have with him is he needs to play better on my fantasy team. That is my only argument I have.
He had a concussion at the beginning of the year.
And A.J. Brown is stealing all of his
Yeah,
touches.
A.J.
but-
Brown. That's A.J. Brown's doing it.
All right, Gwen, go ahead.
Yeah. All right. My pick is Johnny Manziel, Johnny Football, and in the favor of transparency, I was 6 when he won the Heisman, so I wasn't really watching him play. But after watching a combination of YouTube clips, like TikToks, and like the Untold documentary, I now have complete respect for his Heisman season, and really just like the absolute chaos that he played with, the kind of electricity that he brought to Texas A&M. And honestly, part of what makes him such a special Heisman winner is that his career didn't pan out in the NFL. Kind of his college football legacy is forever memorialized as that. And so that season will really, in my opinion, never be touched. And when you look back at it, there's really no other player that Nick Saban is making a joke at his own expense to, you know? So I truly think Johnny Manziel, Johnny Football, best Heisman winner of all time.
Definitely. I think if there was a textbook just dedicated to the history of college football, Johnny Manziel would have to have at least one chapter just about his time at Texas A&M.
I genuinely think if you're doing like a fantasy draft of Heisman winners, he is your number 1 overall.
He's a beast.
1-1. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chase.
All right. All right, so my Heisman pick is about to be the 3-time NFL MVP Lamar Jackson. He led Louisville to 3 straight bowl appearances. He led the league in rushing yards for a quarterback and recorded almost 70 touchdowns during his tenure at Louisville. I would argue he's the most dynamic quarterback at all time, the most dynamic quarterback in college and NFL of all time. I think he has proved all his haters wrong. Everyone in the draft, during the draft process, was saying, "Oh, you should switch to receiver. You should switch to running back." He's proven to be a pocket passer. He can run it, he can throw it, and he's built a strong bond with the Ravens. He's having a great career as a Ravens fan. I'll defend him till the day I die. But watching him at Louisville, which is something special, I think his Heisman moment was when he hurled the guy at Syracuse. I just don't think we've ever seen a quarterback athlete at his level. So yeah.
I mean, winning a Heisman at 19 years old, like, that's crazy. My parents also met him. I don't know
no
how,
way.
but they met
That's
him.
crazy.
Good
fun fact.
Love someone more. But for my pick, I'm a Steelers fan, so it pains me to pick this guy now that he's in Baltimore. But I went with 2015 Derrick Henry. He was the first non-quarterback since Mark Ingram in 2009 when he won this in 2015. And then he was the only non-quarterback to win the award until Devonta Smith in 2020. He led all of college football in carries. He led all of college football in rushing yards with 2,200 and some change, I think, and led all of Division I in touchdowns from scrimmage with 28. The dude was absolutely untouchable at Bama, ran through everybody. And not only that, but I looked at the roster this morning. The Bama offense that he played with was led by quarterback Jake Coker, who didn't even make it to the league, and their best wide receiver was freshman Calvin Ridley. So really, the entire offense was this guy right here, and he led them to a national title win over Clemson, where he had 150 yards and 3 touchdowns in the game. So without him, that Alabama team doesn't do what they did that year.
Yeah. That's an amazing Clemson team, too.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, he was really exciting to watch in college. And I just don't understand how someone that big can still run this fast, especially now in the NFL at the age of 30.
I think he has one of the fastest sprint speeds this year. I think in the NFL.
Have you heard his daily routine?
Yeah, he spends a lot of money on his body too. But have you guys ever seen the picture of him next to Mark Ingram during a coin toss?
No, I think so. I think I know what you're talking about.
Both Alabama running backs obviously both had great careers in college and NFL. But the height comparison between the two, right there.
Both Alabama
Mark
running
Ingram's
backs,
to hear on him. It's not even fair.
Oh yeah, actually both Ravens running backs too. Actually,
yeah.
I always forget Ingram's spent some time there. But with the playoffs approaching, we're all going to go around the table now. We talked about the playoffs earlier, but now we're going to talk about our X factors in the college football playoffs.
I said that I think that coaching can be an X factor for the playoffs, specifically Curt Cignetti. I know he's been doing very well as the coach for Indiana. He proved himself at JMU, but and he was also on Nick Saban's original coaching staff. He's a great recruiter. Mm-hmm. He got Julio Jones as a recruiter on for Alabama. So, he's very good, but college football, and he gets tested this week against OSU, because some could argue that he hasn't really played anybody. Their best win is over Michigan, who we know I don't even think they're bowl eligible right now. So that's
no, they're fighting for it this week.
Yeah, so that's not even that convincing of a win, because they didn't even beat them that well. So I think that this college football playoff is entirely new for this team and for him as a head coach. And the atmosphere, that could be completely different. And I don't know, I think he'll be very tested, and that could be a determining factor for them if they do make it into the college football playoff, which it does look like they will now. So,
do you think he stays with Indiana after the season?
I have a bold take about this one. Go ahead.
Do you think? I don't know, because he left JMU so fast. He brought them up and then he left them so fast. So I don't want to say, oh, maybe he likes the atmosphere. I don't know. I mean, I would low-key love him to be a coach here. But
I was literally just.
I
That is
know,
my bold take.
James Franklin is
I love James Franklin. Don't get me wrong. But would I love Curt Cignetti more? Yeah, probably.
Right. I don't know. I just feel like you can take these teams all the way to this level.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I feel like,
and if they beat Ohio State this weekend, I'm not going to be happy, because what do you mean we've had a coach for 10 years and he can never beat Ohio State, and he comes in for 1 year and beats them?
No, he literally everything that Cignetti has done, coached at IUP, brought them to success. Coached at JMU, brought them to success.
Yes.
Coached at Indiana, brought them to success.
Yes. But I think this is their test.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So that's why I have him as the X factor. He's very good, but I'm not fully convinced.
Yeah, we got to have at least one Cinderella team run through.
That's why college basketball is so good, because that's where I get that.
Exactly.
That's not really here.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. All right, Gwen.
So my X factor is the fans. Who's going to travel? What does the impact of having a student section do? Because now there's going to be home games. So think about it. Penn State has, I think, 21,000 spots for students during a home game. That's going to have an impact on a team that's traveling out. Think about it. Boise State fans. They're going to travel. There's not a lot of them, but this is kind of a once-in-a-lifetime situation for them. They're going to travel out. Last year, for example, during the Penn State Ole Miss Peach Bowl, that was in Atlanta. And right now, so Ole Miss fans were obviously more inclined to come. Right now, Ole Miss is set to play a home game at Beaver Stadium, which, number one, they've never played in, and number two, it's a home game for Penn State, so there's going to be Penn State home fans.
The
So,
weather there
Yeah.
too, like
Yeah.
They're used to playing
Exactly.
70 degrees.
right, and then they
nights,
come up
sunny
here
nights.
in
Yeah.
December.
Alabama.
I can't even live through that.
No, no,
That's
no.
too much for me.
No, yeah.
I don't
Alabama
even-
and
yeah.
Indiana is
Especially,
like
yeah,
cold.
especially the way that Big Ten teams and Penn State specifically play. They play like a hard-nosed type of football. They're going to hit you. They're going to
Right.
put you in the ground. The cold grass ground. So, yeah.
That's not going to feel good.
Yeah.
Chase, your X Factor?
All right, so my X factor for the college football playoffs has got to be Tyler Warren. I think the simple recipe for success for Penn State is the more you use him, the more points you'll put up. We saw this against USC. He was huge in that game. He had over 100 yards receiving. We see that he can rush the ball too. He can even throw the ball. So he's a Swiss Army knife, and he's a nightmare for defensive coordinators. So I think we need to, Penn State needs to use him as much as possible. There's been a lot of speculation around James Franklin not being able to win big games. If he can get Tyler Warren involved early in these next couple games, especially the playoffs, I think they could make a deep run and the narrative could change around Penn State.
Yeah.
We saw it during the Ohio State game. He did not get the ball a lot.
No,
I feel
And the
like.
offense, stagnant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really want to see like Warren do a Derrick Henry type of thing and just carry us as far as you
Right.
can.
Literally, please
Please.
save us.
No, so for me, I actually went with something we kind of already touched on, but I went with play. Oh yes, perfect picture. I am
Great
so
picture,
glad
great
I wanted
picture.
to say something about stadium polls. Playoff home games
Yeah.
are my X factor for sure. So as we looked at the bracket earlier, right? Ole Miss plays at Penn State. Boise State would be at Ohio State. I kind of altered it a little here just to make sure that I covered the grounds of the rankings tonight. Notre Dame would be at Tennessee, Georgia, or Bama, and then either of Georgia, Bama, and Tennessee would be at Indiana. So we're used to neutral site football in the playoff. Having home games is going to be absolutely insane. So Penn State got demolished last year in the Peach Bowl. That was brutal. While I will admit we're missing a bunch of guys that skipped out on the bowl game. I think we lost both our offensive. We fired Yursich, and Manny Diaz walked. So then, outside of that, we had pretty much nothing. This year, though, it's going to look different when we have a full roster, full coaching staff, and they have to come to Penn State in the middle of January.
Full capacity.
Yeah.
I want it to snow
Oh
so
my God.
bad. Do not let Jackson Dart run the football. Don't let Jackson Dart throw the football, because then we're going to run the football.
Yeah.
Boise State will need to upset to defeat Ohio State, but playing in Ohio, no easy task. That's going to be a tough one. I think, though, a big one is Notre Dame. We always talk about them playing nobody every single year. So I think going into any SEC team stadium is going to generate a lot of this
Yeah.
for them.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see Notre Dame probably get humiliated, but
Yeah,
that's also
that's what
because
I'm
of that
excited to
home
see.
field.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, then at Indiana, I think any team going to Indiana in January, again, I know I bring it up. I know a lot of people aren't big fans of Indiana, but I would be really, really excited to see what happens there. So now, this weekend, we have some very exciting ranked matchups. We're going to give some speed predictions and just run through these real quick. What do you guys got for Ohio State and Indiana?
I feel like it's Ohio State.
Yeah.
It's got to be Ohio State. They got to prove something. They lost to Oregon. They got to beat them. They have to beat Indiana.
As much as I think it'd be cool, little underdog story for Indiana. I do think Ohio State's going to win. It's in Ohio State. We all know how their fans can get. It's a tough environment to play in. It's going to be Ohio State.
Yeah. Ohio State wins this. I would love Indiana to win this just because I don't like Ohio State. But I think Ohio State wins this in a landslide.
I'm so happy I get my wish and I get to flip the graphic on you guys. I'm going with Indiana. Ryan Day has struggled
There you
against
go.
top 5 opponents. He has a losing record against them. Again, I love what Cignetti has done. I wouldn't be surprised if Ohio State wins, but I'm pulling for Indiana and I'm picking them. And so next game we got BYU, Arizona State.
This is the game of the week, in my opinion. Big Big 12 implications on the line. I'm gonna be a little bit boring here. I'm gonna go with BYU. As much as I love the upset, I think they're more stable. Arizona State, I can't trust them yet. They need to win this game, and they'll have my full trust.
I actually went the opposite way. I said Arizona State wins. They coming off a win. They're rolling. BYU just lost in a while for the first
They
time.
haven't looked good
Yeah. It was their
recently.
first
Yeah.
loss, and I think BYU won't be able to bounce back in a way that they should be able to against Arizona State.
I actually have BYU for the exact reason you said, but I think that BYU, they just lost. They need to prove something. They're mad. They probably are getting really worked this week. They probably lost their scooter scooter advantages. So I think that they know they need to win this game. So I think coming into that, especially after a loss that you know you should have won, they're going to win this game because I feel like they're mad, they're angry, their coach is mad at them. That's scary. So
Originally, I had picked BYU, but I'm actually going to flip it, and now we're going to divide the table in half. I'm going with Arizona State. They're 5-0 at home this year. I want chaos, so I want to see Arizona State win. That would be sweet. And then the last game we have is Notre Dame at Army.
Look at this helmet matchup. I mean, can't get better than that. But anyway, give me Army.
Yeah.
I have Notre Dame. I hate saying it, but I have Notre Dame. I feel like Army hasn't really played anybody. Notre Dame hasn't either, but
Yeah, they
I
never
guess
really
Notre
do.
Dame,
But
I also have Notre Dame. I'd love for Army to win just for like the vibes, but I think that's not going to happen. Notre Dame, as much as I love to hate on them, they're a decent team, and I think they will beat Army.
yeah.
So earlier this year on 360, I said that Notre Dame would lose to Navy. They then proceeded to beat them 51-14. So Army is undefeated. This is their first true challenge, and it's week 13 already, so I'm going with Notre Dame in another blowout. But I believe that's all we have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure you check out tomorrow's basketball show.